Work podcast. You're with the host, Julian Leahy. Today I'm joined by Sam Rosenberg. Welcome to the show, Sam.
Thank you, Julian. Pleasure to be here.
All right, we're going to play a little bit of one-man Jeopardy today, but it's still going to be fun. Let's load it up. All right, the categories for Sam are oddities, islands in water. I think you need to work out where the island is. I'll tell you the island, and you need to say what body of water it's in. Collections, beastly expressions, G things that start with G, and celebrity patents. So famous people that have patented something unusual. What would you like to start with, Sam?
Oh man, let's do something fun. I don't know what G things are. Let's start there. How about 100?
For 100. During adolescence, you might feel these in your limbs, but also the title of an 80s sitcom. Starring, I think it had Jason Bateman in it. And maybe
oh my God,
Kirk Cameron.
I am not good at trivia, Julian. I don't know, man.
Tapping out
no
early. It's called Growing Pains.
Oh, geez. Okay, of course.
Makes sense, doesn't it?
And it's 80s, of course. I should have got that.
Well, I didn't want to assume anything. I actually remember that show myself. Let's continue on, Sam. What would you like?
Let's do oddities for 100.
Oddities for 100. A 2004 contest saw Brain Freeze beat out Growling Stomach and Tennis Elbow to be added to this electric game. It's a game that kids play, and it's kind of representing a surgery situation.
Oh, Operation.
Operation is correct. Well done, Sam.
All right.
That's better.
How about islands in water?
Islands
for 100.
in water for 100. Koror and Guadalcanal.
Pacific Ocean.
Let's take a look at that. Is correct. Well done, Sam. Sam's on fire all of a sudden.
All right. Let's do islands in water for 300.
Islands in water for 300. Mahe and Sri Lanka.
I'm going to say the Pacific Ocean again.
Interesting.
It might be more like the Indian Ocean.
Which one would you like to go with, Sam?
Let's go with the Indian Ocean.
Indian Ocean is correct. Well done. You corrected yourself. Maybe my pause was a bit of a tell.
Yeah, it helped me out a little bit. How about beastly expressions for 100?
Beastly expressions for 100. The straw that broke this creature's back.
The camel, of course.
Is correct. Well done, Sam. Off to three in a row after getting the first one wrong.
Yeah. Let's go celebrity patents for 200.
Celebrity patents for 200. In 1993, this Billie Jean singer co-patented a method and means for creating anti-gravity illusion.
That would be Michael Jackson.
Is correct. Well done, Sam.
We're on a roll, Julian.
It's all you, Sam.
How about collections for 300?
Collections for 300. A chrome pop-up one from... not like a chrome pop-up like what we think it is. A chrome pop-up one from the 1950s was the first in Jens Vierbeck's collection of about 600 of these kitchen appliances.
Chrome pop-up in the 1950s.
A little bit weird to collect kitchen appliances and one that pops up. What is that?
Oh, I have no idea. I'll just take a wild guess. Coffee maker.
It's toaster.
A pop-up toaster oven. Okay, got it.
But who really cares what that guy's collecting? What would you like next?
Let's do beastly expressions for 500.
Beastly for 500. Killing the fatted one. It means Like if you're a salesperson and you've had a record month, you might say,
A whale.
I believe it's killing the fatted calf.
Ah, okay.
But I can't say it's a common expression. We say down here in Australia, kill the pig. Have you heard that one?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, but not really calf. Haven't heard that, I'll be honest with you. But Alex Trebek says that is the one that people say.
All right.
Well, he did say. I think he's no longer with us.
Yeah. How about oddities for 300?
Oddities for 300. In 1986, a judge told the Library of Congress to resume producing pictureless braille editions of this magazine.
Life magazine.
It was Playboy. That would be an interesting braille magazine.
Yeah, it would. Let's go islands and water for 500. I'm doing okay in that category.
Islands in water. New York State's Grand Island and Three Sisters Islands. Are you an East Coaster?
Yeah, it would be the Atlantic Ocean.
It's the Niagara River. They're
Oh,
actually
geez.
in the river, believe it or not. Must be a wide river.
Must be. Oh, how about celebrity patents for 100?
Celebrity patents for 100. Patented March 1, 1921, was an improved diver's suit by this escape artist.
I'll try Houdini.
Houdini is correct. The most famous escape artist of all time. What would you like next?
Let's do oddities for 400.
Oddities for 400. From 2007 to 2011, the President, VP, and Prime Minister all had the same family name in this country of Indochina.
My God.
So it's what we know as Indonesia, and it's a famous surname from Indonesia.
Oh my God.
Or maybe
that's more in your neck of the woods, Julian.
It is, yeah. Well, I tell you what, I don't know if the Philippines is included in this, but if it is, I'll say Marcos.
Oh, okay.
Because he was like this dictator down there.
Yeah.
Up there. For me, it's up there.
Yeah. I mean, I remember Imelda Marcos, that whole fiasco, but I don't know the name.
Yeah.
You know.
Let's have a look. Vietnam. Oh, we just had to name the country. We both failed in comprehension.
Oh.
Vietnam was the answer. Let's do one more question and we'll wrap it up. What would you like?
Okay. Let's do islands again and for 400.
Islands for 400. Gotland and Bornholm. I'll tell
Sounds
you what,
like something
British. Sounds British.
Yeah.
Or maybe, yeah.
We'll try the English Channel. I don't know. It's
The
Atlantic
English Channel,
Ocean, but
which would be the Atlantic, I guess. I'll accept either. It's the Baltic. It's up top. Maybe it's kind of up near Finland and Norway and all. I don't know where the Baltic Sea is. Let's have a round of applause for Sam. Well done, Sam.
Hey, thanks.
You actually won that game quite easily.
Well, being by myself, it's easy.
It is easy. Well done, Sam. And tell us a little bit about what you are up to. You're a former Marine Corps. Extremely impressive person. It's quite hard to get through the Marines, isn't it, Sam?
It is. You know, I was a Marine officer. It was an incredible experience, but I found myself, Julian, once I got into the Marines, active duty, that I was really allergic to bureaucracy. So while I'm very proud to be a Marine, I was more excited to get out and become an entrepreneur and kind of landed in the bodyguarding world and protected a variety of people, from celebrities like Tom Cruise to, folks like Warren Buffett and Benjamin Netanyahu when he was the former prime minister. But I've got a philosophy that it's good to have a lifeguard, but you should know how to swim. And, so I've been really focused the last 20 years a little bit more teaching people the same skills and tools we use to protect public figures.
That's wonderful. And, I find that a lot of former Marines are very good entrepreneurs for some reason. Have you noticed that, Sam?
Yeah, I think that I definitely I see that a lot in the military. You have folks that the training and the discipline and the way of thinking
Yeah.
enables you to really be an independent thinker, especially in the armed forces of the United States and in sort of the Western countries, that prize small unit leadership and initiative. So
Yeah.
definitely.
We need a plan, and let's execute the plan. And then you got
Mhm.
into bodyguarding and security. And at what point was that an entrepreneurial opportunity, and how did you sort of grow that?
So I got out of the Marines in 1996, which feels like a million years ago today. And I landed in the close protection world. I was very lucky. I landed with a good group of folks. I had a mentor who was tremendous, in teaching me the trade. But my real entrepreneurial journey started in 2003 when I decided it was time for me to go off and do my own thing. And I first began, like I said, I was driven by this philosophy that, I really wanted to teach people. I wanted to teach them the same skills and tools we use to protect public figures, which is a very different path towards, if you will, personal protection, self-defense than what I was finding out there for the most part, which was more martial arts based, or sort of foot stomps and eye pokes, things like that. It was really, there needed to be a much more sophisticated approach. And that began my entrepreneurial journey. I eventually came full circle a few years later, started a second company. We now do basically three things. We do preparedness, which is where I tend to focus my time and attention. That's a lot of training, whether it's workplaces or individuals, families, things like that. We do a lot of intelligence work, which involves things like vulnerability assessments on locations, or properties, homes, things like that. We do threat assessment, which is dealing with the human side of things. If someone's making a threat or acting threatening, how do we assess that to determine if they in fact pose a threat? And then we also still do some close protection. I limit that to just a few, clients that we work with nowadays in special circumstances, celebrities and things like that. But it's kind of cool how we've come full circle into this totality of everything involved in personal protection and workplace security. But that's been my journey, and it's been now 21 years or something like that on my own. And it's been enlightening in many ways.
Yeah, being prepared is something that people are taking very seriously lately. As somebody in this area, you must have been shocked to see the whole Secret Service debacle recently. What's your thoughts on
Mhm.
that, Ben?
It was a debacle, and
Sam, sorry.
interestingly, yeah, that's okay.
Yeah.
Interestingly, Julian, the assassination attempt on former President Trump happened about 20 minutes from my home.
Oh, wow.
So where I live, and so not only was there a distinct professional connection there was also a very distinct local connection. I had a lot of folks that were at the rally
You knew
who
the area.
witnessed the
You've been
attack.
there, no doubt.
Mhm. Yeah. Oh, definitely. Many times. So it was a total catastrophe. And I wrote an article about it. You can find it on my website with my full tactical analysis of it. The website's livereadybook.com is the easiest access point. But I write a lot of articles. That particular article I wrote, I was on the news a number of times immediately after the assassination attempt. So the day after. And I found myself repeating a lot of the same analysis. So I wrote it up into basically a tactical analysis, and it was published in a couple of different ways. But functionally speaking, it was a total debacle. Yeah, that never should have happened if any kind of basic security protocols were really adhered to. There were gigantic holes in the process, including, the most obvious: why was that rooftop left unguarded? In the most basic security 101. When you have a public figure on stage, you secure those types of locations. It's like the low-hanging fruit.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of complexity to those kinds of operations, but that's the easy miss. There were also a lot of other things, communications breakdowns. When they knew that they had a suspect wandering around that they lost track of, or when they had reports that someone was on a rooftop, why didn't they get Trump off stage? There was a lot of breakdowns, even to the point of the response of the Secret Service was completely haphazard and incompetent once the shooting started. It was a total
on
mess.
stage for a good 5 seconds. It seemed like
It was a total mess, Julian. I mean, and we could go down the list. We could break it down. I mean, number one, the snipers, clearly took out the shooter, the counter snipers, as they're called, took out the shooter very, very quickly, which means to me, I'm talking within a second of the first shot being fired. Once the shooting started, the counter snipers engaged that target. That tells you clearly, Julian, that they had him already in their sights.
yeah.
So the question comes up, if the decision was made, which I don't even think that there was a conscious decision made, but if there was this decision was made to effectively guard and cover that rooftop by way of counter sniper overwatch, why did they wait to engage that target? There's a lot of that. Then when we look at the tactics of how the incompetence of getting Trump off of the stage and into the vehicle, you look at little things. From my perspective, the vehicle wasn't even positioned correctly. They put him into the wrong side of the vehicle. Once they actually finally got him to the vehicle did not start moving towards the hospital. History has always told us that we don't know the extent of injuries when shooting starts. He could have been hit and critically injured, and every second counts getting him to medical response. So it was an absolute mess. And the biggest issue that I have with it at this stage, thank God, Trump wasn't killed. Regrettably, 2 other people were critically injured. 1 person lost his life in front of his family. Total disaster from a security perspective. The problem I have with it right now is absolutely no one has been held accountable for that. If my teams had effectively been hired to provide that level of security, we would be held accountable, not only to do it correctly, but God forbid if the shit hits the fan, to make sure that someone is taking responsibility. And the head of the Secret Service didn't take responsibility. She was allowed to retire and resign and receive her pension as a result, as opposed to being fired. No one has been called out as the team leader who was responsible for those decisions on the ground. I want to know who did the advance work and how could they have done it so incompetently. So there's a ton of those kinds of questions that, in typical bureaucratic political, machinations, have been just swept under the rug. And, let's just not talk about it and hopefully it'll go away. And then you have this other incident in Florida, which is even not more baffling, but at least in that case, it was stopped in advance of shots being fired at the target, which is President Trump in that case. So
that guy,
total mess.
Crazy. Yeah. There's a lot of these kind of lone wolf nutcases, way more than there used to be. And I think it's going to get worse. And, I guess school shootings is the one that worries me the most. And you talk about that in your book. Do you want to tell us a bit about that? What can we do to minimize the damage?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, school shooting and workplace shooting, mass killing as we see it today as a manifestation of violence. The first thing I want to talk about just with regard to that, just for the audience listening, is to understand this is a relatively new phenomena when it comes to human violence. Okay. We've always had mass killers throughout history, Genghis Khans and Hitlers and things like that. But the idea of a child coming to school, an adolescent, with the intent of effectively indiscriminately targeting his classmates, is a relatively new phenomena. Same thing in the workplace. The onset of this was somewhere around 1990. Okay, it could be looked at 1989, 1992, but let's just call it 1990 for easy numbers. The thing is that even though it's relatively new, we've had enough track record, not just in the United States, but globally. And some of the worst incidences of mass killings have happened in places that have total gun control, all right, or very, very restrictive access to weapons. And this is in Europe and Norway, things like that. So the concept here is that this is a global problem. And the biggest problem that we have is that we are not really addressing the root cause. We have to look at it and say, what has changed in our societies collectively that have enabled people to see this type of violent behavior as an appropriate or, a reasonable methodology for them to get their message across. And I don't see any difference between a school shooter, a workplace shooter, or an international terrorist. In fact, as far as I'm concerned, they're all terrorists. The only differentiator, really, is ideology. One might be politically motivated, another one might be personally motivated, but the MO is exactly the same. The modus operandi, how they behave, how we would spot them, how we would stop them is the same. So when we look at the root problem, okay, and I could talk about all the security measures that could be put in place that for some reason, even after, all these decades of dealing with it, are still not universally in place. Like having appropriate security measures in schools and having a unified approach. The reality is dealing with the root problem. What it really comes down to, Julian, is the basis that if you want to pull the fuel out of the fire and you want to remove the opportunity for these things to happen, we understand that the purpose behind all of it, just like international terrorism, is notoriety. All right. What these folks want, they're using violence as a mechanism to achieve the end goal of getting their message out there. Okay. So this is why the manifesto is found in the locker or, is sent to the news media the day before, or nowadays they do video manifestos or something, and they want everybody to know why they're mad. It's not enough that they're mad and they want to do something about it and hurt other people. They want everyone to know why. And the news media in so many ways plays almost like the role of the happy co-conspirator to this, because as soon as there's another school shooting or workplace shooting, the news media just loves to saturate the news with it for the next 24 hours or week or whatever it takes. And, that gets ratings. As they say, if it bleeds, it leads in the news. So the concept here is that the number one way to pull the fuel out of the fire is to not showcase these people. I'm not saying don't report on the crime. I'm not saying don't, manage it from the standpoint of public information, but don't publish their names. Don't publish their picture. Don't talk about why they did it. Don't explore, the motive is unknown. We have to wait until the investigation gives us the motive, and the motive is always the same, right? So the idea here is that instead of providing the fuel that continues to feed this fire, what we want to do first and foremost is get on the same page that every counterterror expert in the world is saying. Stop putting their names and their faces on social media, on the news media, and the 24-hour media cycle. Because now these folks know, hey, if I do something like this, nobody's ever going to hear my name. Nobody's ever going to hear my issue. And, that is the fastest way to begin to suppress this dynamic. Okay. In my book, Live Ready, I go into great detail as to my theories as to why, the last 30 years or so have seen such a rise in this. And a lot of it comes down to the communications that we have, social media, 24-hour news cycle, things like that. Video games play a role here. A lot of other factors play a role, but the reality is that is the number one. And, most people love to look at the surface issues. One half of the world says it's all guns. Guns are the problem. The other half of the world says it's not guns, it's mental health. Well, realistically, both of them are partially correct, right? But only to the degree of that one little surface piece. We're not getting below the surface to the root causes. And I believe in looking at the root factors and working our way up. Should bad people have access to guns? Certainly not. The only problem with that dynamic is, where do you draw the line and how do you manage that, right? And what are the unintended or the possible consequences of something like, say total gun control or something like that, which I disagree with. If we get into the idea of mental health, certainly mental health is a part of the issue. The problem is most of these folks that go off in this way, they are functioning people. They would not actually be diagnosable as mentally deranged in such a way that you could pull them out of society. And that inherently is another level of problem. So the issue that we have here is these dynamics are very complicated. I look at it and say, what's the easiest, fastest, universal solution? Let's start taking the fuel out of the fire. That just requires a little bit of participation from the news media. And I've seen people try to do that. I saw at one point, oh my God, the name just flew out of my head, but one of the big CNN newscasters made a push for this, saying, he was reporting on a major incident. I think it might have been Sandy Hook or, Parkland, one of these big school massacres. And he said, I'm not going to say the guy's name. All right. And, if everyone else had followed suit with that, we would have had, I think, at least begun the process of reducing this. So that's a partial answer.
It can be done. I've only seen it done once, Sam, and there was this Nazi guy, Australian neo-Nazi, and he went over to New Zealand and shot up a bunch of mosques. And
yes.
There was a combined effort he had this manifesto that he wanted out. Nobody saw the manifesto. Nobody even knows his name. I mean, I can't even remember his name, and he was Australian. And they successfully just locked him up and just ignored him. And it was very effective. So it can be done. And I really agree with that. It's this cry for attention. And like you said, if it leads, it bleeds. The media just is in the business of just turning that into a bonfire. And and all the other people out there see it. And finally, someone's going to listen to me. And then it just, leads to more of the same.
Yeah.
So,
and the incident in New Zealand, in Christchurch, New Zealand, is talked about extensively in my book. And, I break that down in a lot of different ways, but you are 100% correct on that. And what was unique about that incident, if you remember it, Julian, is that he live streamed the attack on Facebook. And, in one of the only times I've seen social media actually competently manage a situation like this, that live stream was taken down very rapidly and you cannot find it. Now, I've seen it because I've gotten the information. I've seen the videos afterwards. I don't recommend anyone even try to search for it because you won't find it, first of all, and you don't even want to see it if you're a decent person. But the concept is that incident was unique in that way, and it was suppressed very, very quickly in a correct and competent manner.
Yes, we need more of that. Well, that's very interesting, Sam. You're very interesting to talk to you. And if you want to have a look at Sam's book, Live Ready, if I can get that at liveready.co. And do you do speaking, or are you still in security? What else do you do, Sam?
Yeah, I mean, I spend most of my time either doing presentations. We work with workplaces around the globe. I do a lot of training. We are rolling out an online training program that will be available on our website. Both we do online training for workplaces as well as individuals, but I do individual, like in-person training on a regular basis. And, we do seminars and I do a lot of speaking engagements. So that's kind of my area of focus, and that's what I love to do. And the book Live Ready is unique in that it's not a self-defense manual where you're going to see pictures of how to get out of a chokehold or something like that. In my opinion, what it is all of the soft skills that very, very few people know how to teach or even know. And it's how to be aware, how to recognize danger, what to do if you find yourself being targeted, how to understand bad guy psychology and the facets of why people do what they do so that you can navigate that. And it really is a guidebook. It's a handbook for living life in a much stronger, more confident, more ready capacity to handle anything. It doesn't matter whether it's a personal security dynamic or any other crisis. So that's what the book's all about. And it's really a great starting point for anyone looking to expand their knowledge in this sector.
Yeah, a lot of people walk around and they perhaps would think I'm paranoid because I scan everything. I look at anybody that's interacting with the kids, or whenever we go somewhere, I even look at like exits and stuff. Crazy paranoid. I've got no reason to be that paranoid, but I feel that if something happened, I would be already getting out of there or reacting. And you don't want to be in the situation where sometimes people are a little bit too complacent. And I've seen people freeze in situations, and you would no doubt would have as well, being in the military. Mm-hmm. You want to at least have thought about things so that you know that you're going to react if something does go down. And I guess that's kind of what the book's all about, Sam.
It is, Julian. And I'm going to tell you right now, you are not paranoid for taking simple and very easy life behaviors into your lifestyle to say, what are my exits? What would I do in the event of X? That's not paranoid thinking. In fact, it's healthy and it's quite natural. Even little kids, 6, 7-year-olds, they don't want to be left in the dark. They don't want to be left, what do I do in the event of a situation, and have this black hole of nothing. They're hungry for that information. Human beings in general want the information to say, what would I do in this situation? And what I've learned over the years is, number one, and we address this again in the book, in the very first chapter, we talk about why do people freeze, right? Freezing is the default. And why we freeze is because of a lack of experience or a lack of information. Our brain literally, like a computer, hits a certain point where we're analyzing what's going on. And if there's no pre-programmed response in there, it becomes decidedly difficult to process. And we get hung up on that. It's like the hourglass coming up on the computer screen. It's just stuck. Now, paralysis of that nature, freezing, is very common. In fact, that is the most common response. It can even extend to the most extreme type of paralysis, which is a type of paralysis is called tonic immobility, which is a total inability to think, to process, to make, to take action. This is where we see people in real critical situations, whether it's sexual assault or active shooter or terrorist type of violence, where they'll say things like, I didn't know what to do, so I played dead, and they just had a complete inability to process or respond. That is a worst case scenario. Whether you live or die in that situation is entirely dependent on whether the bad guy chooses to kill you. What we really want is to retain our greatest asset. And our greatest asset is our ability to think and make decisions. And preparedness is really not about making people into a ninja. It's about enabling you to be able to think and make good decisions under pressure. And there's only two ways to achieve that. There's the hard way and there's the easy way. Now, the hard way is to somehow manage to survive dangerous situations, and as a result, have a very powerful experiential base that you can draw upon. The easy way is to learn through others, right? And to take training and to expand your horizons and to program your brain when you're not under crisis. And that is the way we are wired as people. We're wired to learn from others and to gather that information, and life-saving information is vital. I don't care whether it's how to do CPR, whether it's how to stop someone from traumatic bleeding and save a life in that way. Self-defense just happens to be a very critical part of our life skill set. And I don't care if we look at it from today's world perspective, where things are a little bit unhinged, or if we look back 50 or 100 years or 1,000 years or 10,000 years, violence is a part of the human condition. And learning how to navigate it, learning how to protect yourself, learning how to protect your family is absolutely a vital life skill. And I don't think checking your exits is a paranoid behavior. I'd say if you're not, you're living in a dream world. All right. You are dependent on others. And, the key here is to know what to do, how to do it. Right. What I would say to you, Julian, is the best way for you to reinforce situational awareness skills and to enhance your own skills is to read parts of the book that talk about that and understand situational awareness is not just about paying attention. To avoid paranoia, right? What you really want is to know what to look for, when to look, and how to look, right? So that you can really take that information in. Because if you're switched on all the time, looking for danger all the time, you'll burn out really quickly, and your brain will come to the conclusion that this is a wasted effort. What you really want is the ability to know when you need to switch on, and when you switch on, know what to look for and how to look for it, right? And that's the stuff that's in this book, and that's kind of a very foundational level of my training. And it's easy to do. It's remarkably simple, and once you enable it, it doesn't breed paranoia and more fear. It actually allows you to navigate life much, much more confidently.
Yeah, understood. Well, that's very, very important stuff. Very interesting, Sam. Very, very good guest, I feel. Thank you very much for coming on, Sam Rosenberg. I'm going to wrap things up.
Thank you.
Sam's contact details are in the show notes, and check out his book at liveready.co. Thanks for listening.